It's a great pleasure for us to welcome here today in Luxembourg the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, who is not only Secretary General of NATO, but a dear friend of Luxembourg and a friend of mine for having been my neighbor in the European Council of Ministers when he served as Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And also before my time in government, Mark Rutte was a close ally of Luxembourg in his previous capacity. But we welcome him here, of course, today as the still rather new Secretary General of NATO. And I must say for our country, NATO is a very important international organization. You know, Luxembourg was neutral during the Second World War, but that neutrality was violated by Nazi Germany. We were liberated by the Americans, and quite naturally, we became a founding member of NATO when NATO was created as an organization for peace, but also an organization, as the preamble of the treaty says, to defend democracy, to defend the rule of law, to defend all the principles we strongly believe in. And those principles that are today being challenged by Russia, who illegally and in an awful manner attacked Ukraine 3 years ago. So NATO has become more, I would say, more trendy than ever. A few years ago, people said, why do we still need NATO? You know, the world is in a different situation than it was in 1949. No, we think that NATO today is extremely important. And for a country like ours, you know, we are like other European countries next to Russia, not directly but indirectly. And of course, what happens in Ukraine could happen elsewhere in Europe as well. And we are stronger together. No country, even the larger ones, can't defend themselves. And therefore, being a member of NATO, and also being a member of the European Union, protects our freedoms, protects our way of life. And we know that if one day Luxembourg would again be attacked, we could count on the support of NATO, of the members of NATO. And that is why this membership is so important, and that is why it's important to welcome here today the Secretary General of NATO, our friend Mark Rutte. The Luxembourg government has decided, the new government that entered into office at the end of 23, in the framework of all the discussions that we had with our partners, that we would increase our defense expenditures. I must say the previous governments did so as well, but we added to that and said that we would go to spend 2% by the end of this year, and then gradually also over the next few years move to the 3.5% that we agreed at the NATO Summit. We don't do that just before we want to buy weapons. We want to do that because we want to be a loyal ally of NATO and because we want to defend the freedom of the people living in this country. Peace is never guaranteed. The rule of law is never guaranteed. You have to fight for it. And one aspect of that is the collective military defense. And that's why we have decided to go that way. It's a difficult way. I want to say here again that will not go at the expense of social expenditures. We will, of course, also continue to finance all the other duties that a country has to keep the social cohesion. But without freedom, you know, without security, without stability, all the other freedoms can be forgotten. I also want to say here again that we stand closely with Ukraine for the reasons I already mentioned. We consider that war and that aggression by Russia to be completely against all the principles of international law, against the Charter of the United Nations. And again, out of the history of Luxembourg, we know how terrible it is if you are invaded by your neighbor. So that is why defending Ukraine is also making sure that tomorrow other countries are not attacked by Russia. And that's why we will continue to support Ukraine. Now Ukraine needs weapons. It's difficult to find all these weapons, and certainly the Ukrainians don't have them. They can't finance them, all of them. So we need to have a collective effort. And that's why the Minister of Defense and myself told this morning Secretary General of NATO that we will participate in the initiative that was recently launched under leadership of the NATO Secretary General, which is called PEARL, which is the prioritized Ukrainian requirement list, which in short means that we will finance, together with other countries, which we still have to identify, a package of already available arms, to a large extent American arms, that we will provide to Ukraine. And we will, of course, in the next few weeks, identify other countries that would be willing to do that with us together. These are usually packages of 500 million. So for medium and smaller nations, you need to have allies to do that with you. And we will start those discussions. But today, we agreed that Luxembourg will participate in this. Finally, I want to reconfirm that Luxembourg is an ally of NATO, which is there by heart and by mind, and we will never have a huge army like some other allies, but we want to have two things. One is a close relationship also with the United States. We believe in the transatlantic relationship, sometimes a little bit bumpy, but if we look in the medium and long term, it's extremely important that we have the Americans with us. At the same time, we want to specialize within NATO, and it is our aim to provide NATO with in which we have a certain know-how, and that's certainly our satellite and space capabilities. Secretary General and the Minister of Defense will visit SES this afternoon. I announced in the State of the Union speech a few weeks ago, as you know, that Luxembourg will buy another satellite for government communications. All that, we do that not only for ourselves, we do that for our partners and NATO allies. So in that spirit, again, it's a great pleasure to welcome you, and it was particularly nice to welcome you this morning with your official NATO hymn, which was composed by a Luxembourg musician, and who was also, when I served as Minister of Defense, the chef d'orchestre of the Luxembourg military music, Lieutenant Colonel André Reichling, and we are proud as Luxembourgers that he composed an anthem that later became the official anthem of NATO. So I think that was a clin d'oeil of Luxembourg for NATO, which I found, and together with Jureko Bakkes, we found very nice, and I like the music. It's a piece of Luxembourg in NATO also.
And I hear it so often.
Yes.
And I always think of you.
So, again, Mark,
thank you so
welcome.